Today we're going to look at 4 ways or keys to mix cleaner color. In other words, how to keep your colors from looking muddy or out of place. Now to do that, we're going to take a look at early California Impressionists, look at their paintings, and figure out what they were thinking when they were mixing color. So we're looking at 4 keys to keep our color clean, or how to mix cleaner color. And we're going to look at California Impressionist paintings and kind of figure out a little bit how they kept their color so clean and good relationship color-wise between the big shapes. So the 4 keys are, first of all, value relationships, which isn't color, it's value. But if you don't have good relationships of the big shapes, value-wise, then the color really doesn't matter. So if your values are off, and by values I mean the darks and the lights, the light shadow of the mountain back here compared to the dark shadow in the middle ground, compared to the little bit lighter shadow of the tree in the foreground, and then the lights, the light on the mountain compared to the light on the ground, getting them the right relationship to each other. If I get this shadow in the mid-ground too dark, it's not going to work as well. If I get these too light, these shadows on the foreground trees, not going to work as well. So get the right value relationship. This shadow in the background hill is only dark compared to maybe the lighter sky or the lighter grass in the foreground. So get the right relationship between the big shapes and masses. The other thing is to use more pure color to have cleaner color. What I mean by pure color is more primary, secondary colors. They're cleaner as opposed to earth colors or black. So if I'm using a palette of red, yellow, blue, and white, those are the purest colors you can use. Your colors are going to be very clean looking, even when you mix a gray. Like I can mix a gray with 3 primaries, red, yellow, blue, by mixing, if it's a green, I'll mix blue and yellow and gradually add a little red. That gives me a grayer green. But it'll be cleaner than if I, throw black in there just to make it darker, or maybe too much earth color. And earth colors being ochre, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, raw umber, burnt umber. There's a lot of different earth colors. They're minerals, so they're that color, but they tend to have the feel of all 3 primaries mixed together in the tube. So if you add them to 2 or 3 colors you've already mixed, you're getting a lot of color in there, and that's why it starts to look a bit more muddy. So let me go back again. Value relationships, number 1. Pure color, number 2. Color mixtures. Keep your color mixture to just 2 or 3 colors. The more colors you mix together, the grayer or the muddier it's going to look. And number 4, focus on color temperature instead of just trying to match local color. So I'll kind of go over each of those a little bit. But let's take a look at some of the California Impressionists. First off, this is not a California Impressionist. This is William Keith from Northern California, San Francisco area. He, Thomas Hill, and some others were before the California Impressionists. Impressionism kind of made its way to Southern California, or California, 1890s or so. But before then, William Keith and Hill were more romantic style painters along the French Barbizon style of painting. So focusing more on value and form rather than color. So you can see their shadows have maybe a lot of black in them. This is another one here, William Keith. Shadows have no color. They're kind of dark brownish. And a lot of times their brown was kind of the shadow color preferred. Not that these are bad paintings. I mean, William Keith was a great painter, and his stuff is great to look at. They just saw color differently than the Impressionists and focused more on the light areas for some subtle color change and not using so much pure color. Everything was more subdued going for that strong contrast. Still, a lot of value relationships are still very important, color harmony, but not so much seeing the colors to create as much atmosphere and colors in the shadows. This is Thomas Hill along the same time. You can see how dark the shadows are. There's no atmosphere in there. There is in the background. And again, really good painter. I learn a lot from looking at his work, but not impressionistic. So let's look at some of the California Impressionists. And of course, it was more in Southern California because of the air quality and the light. I mean, the atmosphere was so different there that it really made it easier to paint outside. And this is Benjamin Brown, one of the earlier California Impressionists. And then as they came during the next few decades, it really grew. Then I think the Depression kind of wiped it out. And after World War II, styles had changed and modernism crept in and everything was more conceptual instead of plein air painting. But it has made a big comeback in the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years even, painters painting outside in California. The California Art Club and Laguna Plein Air Painters really is a vibrant place for painting. This is Granville Redmond. That foggy stuff that comes in California off the coast. Again, getting the right value relationships. It's not going to work without getting the big shapes, sky shape, tree shapes, grass shape, and the shape of the sheep. Get them the right value relationship compared to each other. Then you can focus on exactly what color. And keeping the colored mixtures a little more pure color and don't mix too many colors together. Now there's not a lot of strong color temperature. And what I mean by color temperature is suggesting the sunlight and shadow by using warm and cool colors. So here you got the warm sky, the warm grass in the middle ground, and they're going to use more warmer colors. The sky has a lot more cad yellow with a little blue. Same thing down here, I would say cad yellow with a little blue to make a more of a yellow-green. Sky a lot lighter, yellow-green, but it suggests sunlight, and when you contrast that with the cooler colors of the shadows, more blues, blue-green in the shadows, then that contrast of warm and cool is going to suggest the light and keep your colors cleaner. This is Marion Wachtel. She was married to Elmer Wachtel. I think Elmer was the instructor. Marion was his student, and they got married. Their work is very similar. I like Marion's a little bit better. She also did watercolor, but you can see the use of blues, cleaner color, fewer colors mixed together. That's a definite blue, blue-violet. This is a definite warm violet on the sunlit mountains. So again, use identifiable pure color when you're thinking about your colors that you want to mix. Don't look at a reference, or if you're outside, look at the area you're going to mix and just mix and mix until you think you match it. Think of a definite pure color, and whether it's warm or cool, get it the right value relationship. And don't mix too many colors at one time. 2 to 3 usually is enough. When you start adding more than 2 or 3 colors or 3 colors together, it tends to get a bit more muddy. So another Marion Wachtel. Again, the big, simple masses and the right or good value relationships. The colors are clean because she's not using black or much burnt sienna if she's using burnt sienna. And I say she's not using black. I have no idea. But it doesn't look like it. These colors aren't heavy looking like they look when you use black. And not that it's bad to use black. I do use it once in a while, but I substitute black instead of blue if I'm going to use black for the most part, for a limited palette. But a lot cleaner and big, simple masses and shapes, not a lot of detail to kind of break up the values too much, which can really kill the color. This is Hanson Puthoff, and you can see the light, airy shadows. Not the shadows can't be dark, but there's more atmosphere and light and shadows than what photographs actually give us. If you're outside, you'll see there's a lot more atmosphere and depth in the shadows. And if we get them too dark, we can kill the color. You can get kind of heavy and grayed or muddy. And we lose the atmosphere as well. So here he's keeping this shadow very, very light, but it's still darker than the sunlit mountains. And it's also cooler in the shadow. Having the right temperature contrast makes your color cleaner. If Hansen gets the color in the sunlight in these background mountains, if he gets them too cool, that can also attribute to kind of muddy color. So getting the wrong temperature can make your color look more like mud. Mud isn't necessarily getting a bunch of colors together and mixing them till they look gray. I mean, that could be muddy, but that could also be a nice grayish color that works. So I think of muddy color in general as getting the wrong temperature. It just looks muddy. If this sunlit grass is suddenly too cool in areas, it's going to appear muddy because it's the wrong temperature. But you can also get muddy colors by getting too many colors together in your palette. Generally, 2 to 3 is going to work, or in your mixtures. 2 or 3 is going to work. 4, 5, 6, I think, can turn it to mud, generally. This is another Hansen put off. Again, strong value relationships. Cleaner, more pure color. And one way you can tell that the color's purer and cleaner is it's very identifiable. So we got bluish mountains, grayed blue-green trees, but it is very identifiable. Yellow, yellow-orange trees, green trees, yellow-orange dirt, violet, blue-violet rocks. So they're very identifiable. So pick a color from the color wheel and then modify it a little bit. And that's going to keep your color cleaner. Yet if you fall in the habit of just staring at an area, like let's say this rock right here, and just mix and mix until you think you've matched it, more often than not, it's going to look muddy. So pick a definite color from the color wheel. There's 12 of them. Red, yellow, blue, orange, purple, green, and then all the tertiary, the in-betweens, the yellow, green, yellow, orange, red, yellow, green, blue, green, things like that. So pick one of those and then modify it. Get it darker, lighter, warmer, cool. Think about how intense you want it or how muted you want it. But keeping it an identifiable color will keep it cleaner looking. And when I say clean color, I don't mean right out of the tube color. I mean color that doesn't look muddy. So another Hansen put off. Again, he's got yellow, orange to orange grass, red, violet foothills, blue, blue-violet mountains. Very identifiable, but they're modified. He's added 1 or 2 of the other colors from the color wheel to it to modify it slightly. And I say don't go beyond 3. You never say never, but more often than not, colors are going to get a bit muddy if you're adding more than 3 colors in there. So another Hansen put off. In the value relationships are good between the big shapes. Color is more pure. The color mixtures are simplified, 2 to 3 mixtures. And I know that because they're not muddy. They work. And it's hard to make colors work when you got 5 or 6 colors in one mixture. Not to say you can never make it work with more than 3, but it is harder. And I think colors look cleaner when you keep it more limited. This is a William Wendt, another California Impressionist. You can see how strong that blue is. I mean, that's just almost straight from the tube blue. So not muted much at all. It's got definite orange, yellow-green grass. Nice gray color here, the haystack. And having areas of grayer color where you use, you can look at this haystack and say it's a yellow haystack, but then adding the complement of violet to it to make kind of a grayer yellow. That grayer color makes the stronger color look stronger. So if I had all strong colors straight from the tube everywhere, it would just scream at you. But if I have some muted areas, like the haystack, these buildings, some areas in the shadow of the tree are a bit grayer. That makes these other colors stronger and they can make more of a statement. But if everything is pure color, then it's just screaming at you. So learning how to mix grays that don't look muddy, and they will help the other colors that you want to stand out and make a statement work a little better. It's another William Wendt. A lot more muted colors, but again, using more colors to get those muted violets and greens and oranges in there, as opposed to just adding black or raw umber to it. Not that using earth colors is bad. There's a lot of painters that use a lot of earth colors and very little pure color, and their colors look beautiful. So I'm not saying earth colors are bad and pure colors are good, but if you want to start practicing to come up with more cleaner colors that work more harmoniously, use more pure colors to start off with. Then maybe start adding your earth colors to learn how to use them to modify the more pure colors. So we started out in art school with, I think, 11 or 12, and I really struggled with mixing color because I had so many colors on the palette. So I went to a primary palette of red, yellow, blue, and a little bit of a viridian hue. I kept that for a long time. That really helped me to understand how to mix colors, because you had to mix everything when you use a primary palette. Then gradually added some of the other colors back. So another William Wendt. Again, very strong color, but nothing looks muddy. Everything looks a bit more pure and good value relationship. Now we get to Edgar Payne. Again, real definite color, red, orange, good value relationships. Not too many colors in one mixture. Otherwise, they would look kind of dead and flat. So you got definite violet here to red violet, orange to red orange in the background hills, definite orange, muted orange in the sunlight and shadow. Picking out definite primary, secondary colors, starting with that, and then decide how much to modify it, whether they're getting grayer or stronger, darker, lighter, warmer color, or cooler. So another Edgar Payne. Not a great file. It's kind of a small file, so it blurs, but you can see the good value relationships. Now this is more muted color. There's not much color that is stronger. Maybe the sky is a stronger yellow-orange, but he's mixing more primary colors together. So more blue, red, and yellow mixed together, that gets grayer. But it's on the green side, so it's still an identifiable color. Same thing at the background mountains. That's pretty gray, but it's not muddy. He's using more pure colors to come up with those grayer colors. And the strong, warm, and cool, really blue shadows, warm gray in the sunlight areas. So you don't have to have a lot of pure colors showing in your painting just to make the colors work. You can have grayer colors, using, I think, more pure colors to mix those grays. I have a few of his boat paintings here. I think he did in Portugal. Good value relationships first, using more pure color to come up with these grayer colors, and of course the stronger colors. Keeping his color mixtures to 2 or 3, and then focusing on color temperature as opposed to just trying to match the color. So he's got the warm orange sail, which is more of the orange with a little yellow, or red with a little yellow, and then red and blue with a little yellow on the shadow side, darker and a bit cooler. So that temperature contrast, I think, keeps the colors cleaner than if you have it the wrong temperature. A warm white and kind of a cooler, definitely cooler than the light, but a cooler shadow on that white sail. So another one here, based more on the sunlight hitting the sails and the clouds, a little bit of the boats, and then the shadow on some of the boats in the water. So that temperature contrast, focusing on that, keeps the colors a little cleaner. Good value relationships. And nothing is overmixed. I don't see colors that have 4, 5, 6 colors mixed in them. They're a bit cleaner, but not straight out of the tube. They're not garish looking at all. This one's beautiful, just strong, warm, and cool. Shadow and sunlight on the sails, and then the boats and shadow. Using the really yellow, light yellow to show the sun in the background sky, how it's warming up the sky. A little more violet, I would guess, in the sky to mute the yellow slightly, or to mute the orange in the light sail, as opposed to adding black. Even here isn't probably black. I don't know that, You could have used black. You can use black with your pure colors if you can use it correctly. But the minute you're adding black to all your colors just to get them darker, you're going to run the risk of getting more heavy, muddy looking color. A few more here. This is E. Fortune, or E. Charlton Fortune. Really good. It's very impressionistic, very nice, clean color. There's no over mixing with a bunch of different colors. And that happens too when you have too many colors on your palette. If you have 22 colors on your palette, you're going to be tempted to add way too many colors into each mixture. Not only will you get mud, your colors won't harmonize as well either. This is kind of a small file, so let's go to a better photograph of her painting. But even these real dark shadows back in here, I doubt it's black. You can see the stronger blue, blue-violet, blue-green. The grays are more pure colors because the grays look colorful. These violets and oranges and greens in the foreground shadow are much more impressionistic and cleaner, and I think more vibrant than using like a white and burnt sienna and blue. I mean, either one will work, but using more pure colors, I think, has more vibration to it, more excitement, and less dead look than using black and earth colors. Again, nothing wrong with black and earth colors if you can use them correctly. It's another one of E. Charlton Fortune. Real strong blue sky and more muted trees, rooftops, and muted grass here, but still all of it's real definite, identifiable color. Look at one more artist here, Alson Clark, A-L-S-O-N. When I was in art school, last century, 1970s, they had a show of his work, and he painted in the 20s, 30s, teens, but they had a show of his pastels. He and his son would travel and do pastels. They were somewhat small, and it was just beautiful. The first time I had seen California Impressionist paintings, although they were pastel instead of oil. And they were very cheap, $300, $400, $500. But back then I didn't have $3 or $4, much less hundreds of dollars. So now I could afford it, but they would be a lot more. But here you can see, and this is not pastel, this is oil, but you can see the more pure color, the violet hills, orange to red-orange, muted red-orange to orange, trees, muted warm green. It's muted. There's no garish color. It has a little bit of the complement in each of the colors, but not enough to kill or get rid of the color. In other words, I can see that's violet. I can see these are orange. And these are green and yellow-green. But they're muted with the complement enough to knock it down. But not a lot of colors to make them muddy. And the temperature, color temperature, is very evident. Warm white and orange for the road, cool, darker, muted blue for the shadow, yellow-green for the grass, still more blue for the shadow, keeping the shadows more blue than having local color in them. So he's pushing the temperature, and that gives you cleaner color when you can focus on temperature instead of just trying to match a color that's there. Another one here, very grayed green grass with a lot of blue in it, but it's still warmer than the shadow. And it's a very high key value. So his value relationships are good, and he's made his darks lighter, but his lights get lighter right along with it. So the relationship is still very good. Just everything is lighter, which means his shadows have more color in them, and the landscape looks a bit more airy than having all the shadows and lights darker, which can make them look a bit heavier. But again, it's not wrong to make all your values darker either. It's a decision to make your values lighter in a lighter key or darker in a darker key. So here's a darker keyed painting. Not a good reproduction, pixelates too much. But this is darker, and how his shadows are darker and his lights are darker. So that means the lights have a bit more color in them, but the shadows don't have as much color in them because they're darker. But a lot of color in some of the areas. Here's another Alson Clark. Very strong temperature contrast between the blue and the orange, yellow-orange, grass and building, and then the darker green trees. So big, simple value relationships that work, and strong temperature contrast. Mixtures are 2 to 3 mixtures, because nothing looks muddy or heavy, or the grays don't look out of step with everything else. They harmonize with everything else. Again, the keys are: make sure your value relationships between the big shapes are there. Keep your big shapes simple. Fewer detail, the better. And get the right value, like how light this is compared to the sky, or how dark the trees are compared to the building. Compare the big shapes and get them the right value compared to each other. Then use more pure colors as an exercise, at least for a while, to understand what cleaner color looks like. Get rid of the burnt sienna and the black for a while, and learn to mix more with more pure colors. And then focus, or use 2 to 3 colors for your mixtures. Not that 4 or 5 is wrong, but you're going to run the risk of getting muddy color the more colors you add. And I would say most of my color mixtures are 2 to 3. Once in a while I can do more, but I have to be careful. And then last of all, focus on color temperature. Is that color a warm color or a cool color? And that's going to help keep your color a bit cleaner also. The internet's full of good paintings to study. They're not always real accurate to the original painting, but you still learn to see how other artists simplify things.